Hello, welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Tuesday evening, moments after the Milwaukee Bucks took home the NBA Cup. Back to Milwaukee. Better get that banner printing up. It's going to look gorgeous next to that 2021 championship banner. All right, we have a very special guest tonight, but it's not the first guy I'm going to mention. Joining us from Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena, where the Bucks are still celebrating as we speak, counting their $514,000, Tim Bontemps.
Hello, everybody.
He's fired out of a cannon. All right, our second guest, he's our lead guest. I was really hoping that you would be here in studio with me, but you are a little under the weather and you're being very respectful, very much concerned about my well-being. Is the Emmy award-winning, old school Twitter dominating,
thank you,
NBA thought leader, only needs a Grammy, an Emmy, and a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony to be an EGOT. It's Jason Concepcion.
Wow, what an intro.
I
think the Grammy is the one.
Trophies podcast with Shea Serrano. What else?
Thank you very much. Host of X-Ray Vision on iHeartRadio, host of the official Game of Thrones
long-suffering New York Knicks fan.
Don't forget all of his
suffering
many
no more
accomplishments.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us, Jason. I hope you're feeling okay. Thank you for respecting everybody's health here. I would have loved to have you right here so I could just put you in a headlock like MacMahon would. So before we talk about the fun stuff, let's talk about this game, because Bontemps, this had so much promise and actually had a pretty good first half and then just a real flat ending. Obviously, you're a Bucks fan. You loved it. There was no drama. The Thunder had one of the worst offensive games we've seen in the NBA this entire season. Certainly their worst game. What were they on threes? 5 for
32.
God. Good God. 34% overall shooting. I mean, the Bucks obviously took it, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, man, I'm not really excited about how this one played out.
Well, listen, I mean, we've talked for the last 5 or 6 weeks about the way the Bucks have played. Now they've turned their season around, and we kept talking about how it was against a pretty soft schedule. Well, tonight they played one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the league and pulled away in the second half and completely controlled the game. And the other story, beyond the fact that they haven't had the strongest competition of late, is that Giannis Antetokounmpo has been consistently incredible on a night-to-night basis and has dragged this team out of the depths by himself. And again, he did it today. I mean, his line is absurd. 26 points, 19 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, plus 14 in the game. And he did it by going 10 for 19 from the line, 10 for 19 from the field, 6 for 11 from the line, and most importantly, no three-point attempts. He has gotten back to his bread and butter. He's using his size and speed and physicality, attacking the rim. He's probably the most devastating transition force the league has ever seen. And his relentless consistency throughout the past several weeks has been incredibly impressive. And when you look at it from the Thunder side, you come into this game, we talked about it on the pod the other day. I mean, the Bucks don't have the perimeter athleticism to slow down Jalen Williams and gilgeous-alexander. You thought this was going to be a night where those guys are going to play great. And the fact of the matter is, Giannis completely outclassed Shea. And we'll see if that has any bearing on the straw poll later this week. And Jalen Williams struggled in the playoffs last year against the Dallas Mavericks. He was bad again today. I mean, 8 for 20 from the field, 18 points. It's one game in the regular season, but if you ask people around the league, what are your concerns about Oklahoma City in a playoff series? It's their offense is a little simplistic because they have those 2 guys who can really attack the paint, and that's it. And it's, can Jalen Williams be good enough as the second star to really carry this team in a playoff series? And in one game, it's only one game, still think the Thunder are the best team in the West. They're awfully good. Those 2 things came to the fore in this one, and it's why the Bucks are NBA Cup champions.
Jason, you just got to your first Hoop Collective, and you got to experience a Bontemps filibuster. Congratulations!
I enjoyed it. It was incredible to be this close to it. You know, the thing that that stood out to me is just the rebounding, just dominating the rebound battle. It seemed like they got every important one. In addition to that, it felt like every Brook Lopez three was a backbreaker, was the kind of three that was like step on your face and not let you climb back into this game. I was a little shocked at how early it felt like OKC let go of the rope. I mean, it felt like with almost 3 minutes left to go in the game, they were just like, okay, we're not gonna contest this. That was a little shocking to me. And obviously a terrible shooting performance. Some of that was the defense, and then some of that was just inert offense, a bad night, everything else. It seemed like
Giannis really wanted this game. Yeah, Giannis really wanted this game. His brother Thanasis, and just sitting courtside and like basically acting like he was still on the Bucks. He's rehabbing from a torn Achilles, and he was sitting next to Giannis's agent. And Giannis's agent, I think, was kind of laughing at Thanasis and his antics. But the bench, the Oklahoma City has like arguably the best bench in the league, if not the best bench, certainly in there. The Bucks bench killed them. That's another thing. I'm going to say that as I was watching this game and I was watching the Thunder kind of wither on the vine and not be able to score, where I went to in my head was Game 5 of that playoff series last year against the Mavericks. It was 2-2. They're at home, and they had a very similar type game. They couldn't make a three. I went back and looked. They were 10 of 40 that game, which was actually better than they were tonight. Their offense died away. They couldn't create action. I think Luka had a triple-double in that game. Obviously, Luka doesn't quite play like Giannis does, but I'm not trying to compare this to a Game 5 of a playoff series in terms of winner take all. But that was the night where the Thunder kind of let themselves be broken on their home court in that series, and that was what they've been trying to rally back from. That's been sort of like their rallying call. And Jalen Williams has talked about what happened after that. Shea's talked about what happened after that. So it's a little bit disconcerting that they come into this game in where there's stakes, and they're fighting for respect. They can say whatever they want. They wish that they were more respected. It does bother them, no matter what they say, that they're not playing on Christmas Day. And so this was going to be their big moment in December, and where everybody was watching. And to kind of lay an egg like that, with that sort of in their minds, not ideal. Hey, Jason, you were at the semifinals over the weekend as a fan.
I was.
I know when you bought the ticket, you're probably hoping the Knicks.
No, I wish I'd known you were here, Jason. I would have seen you.
What was
I was very much hoping that the Knicks were going to make it. It was great. I think that it was a little muted. It seemed through the television like the energy at this game was a little more heightened. I would say it was about 25% Hawks fans. Yeah, 25% Hawks fans, 20% Bucks fans, and then like general sports fans sprinkled in with people who are like gambling fanatics who walked in off the street. So it's like a muted atmosphere, which kind of brings me to I feel like that the league needs to, this is so modeled on European football. And when teams in Europe play away in Europe, there are supporters organizations that help organize travel for hardcore fans to go. I think the league should look into something like that to get they kept going to shots of like really intense Bucks fans, like they were sitting really close right behind the crew. And it'd be great to see a whole section of that to really pump up the atmosphere there. But overall, it was fun. Basketball was good. And the Bucks were impressive that day as well. I'm
actually impressed that there were that many Hawks fans there. You're saying there was a 25% of the fans were Hawks fans?
Well, remember that on Monday night, the Falcons played the Raiders here in Vegas, and that is right. The NBA, I think, got very lucky on that. And Jason, to your point about the atmosphere here on Saturday, this is modeled off European Cup competitions, and another part of European Cup competitions is different than this, is that typically the semifinals of those competitions are played at home stadiums. And I think there's a very real possibility, I wrote about this today, Tuesday, on our site, that I think there's a real possibility that at some point in the future, whether it's next year or beyond that the semifinals of this tournament are played at home sites like the quarterfinals are. And you have the atmosphere that we saw in these quarterfinal games. Because I was at the Garden, where obviously, unfortunately for you, that the Hawks came away with a win, but obviously the Garden was great. And like you imagine the Garden hosting the semifinal game, the place would be crazy. We saw how great the atmosphere was for Thunder Mavericks last week. If that Thunder Rockets game, which was a terrific game, was played in Oklahoma City on Saturday night, it would have been an absolute madhouse for the game. So I do think there's a decent chance we see that in the future that would help the atmosphere some too. But it did have some more energy today, and I do think the fact that it was the title game helped, up the stakes for everybody in the building too.
Yeah. Look, I actually was pretty excited about this game, and I understand that there wasn't going to be a lot of fans and a lot of excitement there. Had it been Warriors-Knicks, I think would have been different. Obviously, last year with the Lakers is ideal, but I knew it wasn't going to be like that, and I was encouraged by the first half, but man, bummer. Guys, I want to talk about the announcement that the NBA made today, which we kind of knew was coming. It had been reported on before, but it was the official change to the All-Star Game format. I'd like to go over it really quick, but I don't even know if I can go over it really quick. Jason, I want to ask you as a taste maker, taste master, finger on the pulse of the NBA culture. How do you feel about an NBA All-Star Sunday night, I guess? I can't call it a game because it's going to be like 3 games where not only is it going to be 3 different games played, but one of the teams is going to be actually non-All-Stars. There's going to be 24 All-Stars. They're going to make up 3 8-team teams. And then there's going to be a team of the winning rising stars that is going to play in the game for some unknown reason. And they're going to play a little little bracket. I don't know, man. I'm trying not to be cynical about this, but come on. What do you think about this?
I think that it's probably time for a drastic overhaul.
That's what this is. This is a drastic overhaul.
I know, but
what are we doing?
Even more drastic. I just think that there is no. I don't know that there is a reality in which the game will be good.
Can I read you a quote, Jason, from Adam Silver today that goes into that? So Adam Silver, who very famously last year declared at All-Star Weekend that the game was back. It was going to be competitive, and then proceeded to watch the score be 211 to 186. Now, we'll never forget watching him walk out of the bowl of the arena, clearly looking like somebody who had watched on national television a very bold prediction go wrong. As someone who has made bold predictions and have them go wrong, I've seen that look before. Here's what he had to say tonight before the game about the All-Star game, in part. Quote, I think we've come to terms that modern All-Stars, which is how the NBA refers to the All-Star game as All-Star, that modern All-Stars are in part about competition, but ultimately they're about entertaining the fans and creating a strong experience for them. As you guys know, I was wrong about last year. I thought in Indiana, the fact that given it was viewed as sort of the heartland of basketball and a strong presence from some of the legends there, that the guys would roll back the clock.
I'm going to call timeout. I'm sorry, this is rude. Time out. I know this is rude.
Fine.
This is
I was trying to get.
Yeah,
I know.
No.
Time out.
Well, that was clearly the buzz on the street at the time. Was like, hey guys.
No, I know. That's not the quote. I thought it went right to that quote in the story.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yes.
I respect Adam Silver.
I am not trying. The stupid thing in the story. I'm very tired.
I am not trying to mock.
No, you're fine.
Him. I'm just saying.
You're not trying to mock me. It's not.
No. I'm not mocking you. I'm just trying not to mock Adam Silver. His rationale was that the game being played in the heartland, Jason.
Yes.
Was going to make them care.
Right.
Oh, we're in Indiana. This is the heartland. Hoosiers.
This is it. Hoosiers, guys. It's Regina Hackman.
This is the part.
It's like, imagine him there on the sideline, begging us to play hard, measuring the baskets like Tim McMahon.
Shooter with the charge.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the part of the quote I wanted to get to. I think that whether it's concern for injury, frankly, the team's not wanting them to go as hard as they did historically. I think a different sense of what it means to be participating in what seems to be an exhibition game to the players. I mean, I'm not happy about it, but I'm also a realist. We've tried many different ways. I just think that a new generation of players view All-Star games differently. Like, well, I think everybody views All-Star games as an exhibition. And the idea that the NBA has spent the last decade trying to turn the All-Star game into Game 7 of the NBA Finals, I have consistently found to be a very bizarre position for them to take. And the fact that we're now having a series of exhibitions that go to 40 points and include a bunch of rookies and sophomores playing in it, all is sort of an indication that this is really just to have some dunk highlights on TV on Sunday night, and then we all go back to the regular season.
Okay, thank you for giving us those quotes. Jason?
Yeah.
They are announcing this the same day Adam Silver basically said, I'm going to summarize all that quote, I give up. I give up, take this.
Yes.
Is essentially.
Yeah. And I think that listen, I think we're going to live in a world in which this new format is widely panned. I think that what probably we need to do is a drastic reorganization of what it is. Maybe the mid-season tournament moves back a scooch and we kind of bundle in Christmas Day games and the All-Star game replaced by some part of the mid-season tournament. Maybe you keep Saturday night and you turn Sunday night into some like an NBA con. Like I'm a nerd guy,
I got
it.
I'm about
to turn
it
into like a celebration of past guys and have them telling stories of the city. I don't know, but I think the world in which the game is going to be competitive does not exist.
Okay, I agree. Now, let me just say a couple things here. One, I respect Adam Silver for telling the truth. I do not mean to mock him. I respect him for telling the truth. I do not want him to stop telling the truth. So that's my first thing. The second thing is I'm going to say here is that the NBA is losing ground basically on Christmas Day to the NFL. The NFL has decided it's taking Christmas Day. This year, there's games on Netflix and they've got Beyonce performing. I do not, it's not a commentary on the NBA. There could be great games on next Wednesday. And I think that we're going to see historically poor ratings just because of the NFL move. The NFL has also hinted it's coming for President's Day weekend, which is the NBA All-Star game. Roger Goodell has said that he's thinking of, I think he has said, or he's at least indicated that they may add an 18th week, and that would push everything back a week, which means the Super Bowl would go to President's Day weekend. So I say what the NBA should be thinking about doing is merging the NBA Cup and All-Star weekend in January on the week that is in between All-Star, the championship Sunday and the Super Bowl, that off weekend, the first non-football weekend. I know that the NFL has sometimes played the Pro Bowl or whatever they call it now, but to me, that's the open weekend. And they should play the All-Star events. And why don't you just forget about the game? Why don't you the game doesn't exist anymore. Have All-Star Saturday night and whatever you're going to put in that, whatever, shootout you have, whatever WNBA players versus NBA players that are of the moment, and then play the NBA Cup game on Sunday and merge it into one weekend and just forget about, it kind of solves a lot of things because they're going to take away President's Day from you at some point anyway. That's coming. So that's I think non-studied comment.
One of the greatest defensive performances we've seen tonight is you stealing my idea right there.
I didn't know it was your idea.
I think that's right, by the way. I think it makes too much sense to involve Christmas Day and maybe the All-Star weekend in the mid-season cup. And I think everybody, at least I feel like it's a little too early. The cup they're going to play Christmas Day.
The NFL is not going to care when it moves it on President's Day weekend, just like it doesn't care about Christmas Day. I'm not arguing get rid of Christmas Day.
The NFL will be playing Christmas Day for the rest of time now. Yeah. And as soon as they add the 18th week, which they will, they'll be playing on President's Day weekend for the end of time. And the problem with all of these suggestions, which all of them are good suggestions, I like turning All-Star Weekend into NBA Con. That would be great. Could just have Jason all over the place there, which would be good. The problem with that is NBC has just paid $1 gazillion to broadcast the NBA, including the All-Star, and Amazon has paid $1 gazillion to broadcast the NBA, including the NBA Cup. And so merging them into one weekend, I'm not sure how that's going to work in terms of the dollars and cents of things, which is ultimately how Adam Silver makes decisions and is why the NBA Cup exists and is why they've been desperately trying to fix the All-Star.
I'm sure NBC is extremely excited about what they're about to inherit next year. With Adam Silver basically saying, now that we've sold it to you, I just want you to know I give up. And again, I am appreciating his honesty. Kevin Durant spoke after practice today in Phoenix. Gerald Bourget, of all cities, Phoenix, had this quote. I want to give him proper credit. He said, this is about the new All-Star format. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's terrible. We should just go back to East versus West. Which, by the way, I'm going to fast forward.
That's called the flaming. That's called the flaming of the idea.
It really is.
Which is what they're going to do next year. I can almost guarantee you after this. Okay, anyway, Bontemps, you talked to Adam Silver about some other things. It was actually a very insightful press briefing that he had before the game, and I appreciate him doing this. What were some of the other things he talked about that we can hear what Jason thinks about?
There was a bunch of them. I mean, he talked about the fact that, like we talked about earlier, the NBA Cup might not necessarily be in Las Vegas. I think it's much more likely that it would just be the semifinals that move and not the final. But it sounds like they're open to making some changes. They did make changes to the schedule for the knockout rounds this week, so they've shown they're willing to tinker with it some. So we'll see what happens there. He talked about the fact that the league is studying the idea of whether there are too many three-pointers taken, though he made it clear they're not going to make any changes anytime soon. They're not going to move the three-point line back. They're very cognizant of what the unintended consequences of messing around with the geometry of the court could be. But he said that it is something he is paying attention to, the idea that, NBA offenses are, quote, cookie cutter in the eyes of some people, and that teams are sort of playing too much of a similar style across the board. He also talked a lot about the current state of ratings and the fact that they're down, and not surprisingly, had a lot of data to talk about how popular the NBA is in virtually every other way besides TV ratings, from social media following to the fact you can stream every game on every day of the week next year as part of the new TV deal. A whole bunch of other internet metrics that don't really take away from the fact that the ratings are down to start the year. And he also said that expansion is still, the league is still not in a place where they're going to move forward on expansion in the short term. So that's a quick run through of several of the things he talked about.
Wow.
Jason, how do you feel about what he said about 3-point shooting?
Yeah, I've become, what are we at, 37% of shots average in the league are threes,
around there
towards 40. We're surely going to get to 40 at some point soon. I think everybody here, I do think if it's not too many now, it will be too many soon. And, I've become one of these take away the corner three guys, make the 3-point line more consistent and just have it run into the sideline. Maybe that's a way to do it. Of course, that's pretty drastic. You could test it in the G League, but I do think there's too many threes. And the moves the Knicks made, for instance, I think show you that, in the past, a team might have said, we're a great defensive team. We have great chemistry. Let's stay within touching distance. And if things break the right way, we can maybe win one. I don't think that's the case anymore. The 2004 Pistons are not coming back. We're not seeing anything like that anymore.
Well, nobody wants that.
You've got to put it up.
I agree.
Yeah, nobody wants that. But a defense-centric team, I just don't think you're going to see that without a modern offense that takes a steady diet of threes. I do think we've reached a point where the analytics have kind of defined the logic of the game.
Yeah, the quality of because you're saying there's too many threes, isn't you saying that the quality is off? That the quality is excellent. No. But Bontemps, I think Adam Silver could have just said, we think our fans like threes and we don't feel like we need to do changes, and this is a variance, and the presidential election affected the early season ratings, and the NFL is doing very well.
Which he did say that in the Dodgers-Yankees World Series also. I mean, he had a lot of reasons why. I mean,
but he also he acknowledged that they were looking at this. He didn't acknowledge that everything's hunky-dory. So I think that's what the take.
I would agree. I mean, I thought it was interesting that he said that. I mean, I would say, to your point, Jason, I don't think that a lot of these NBA teams play the same way. And I think, you look at the Knicks, for example, like you mentioned your team, right? They don't take that many threes. Like, they have the best offense in the league. They have a better offense than the Celtics by a per possession rating. And the Celtics are taking 51 threes a game, and the Knicks are taking 30-some, right? Like, the Celtics are very far on the end of the scale, but I do think a lot of teams are playing differently. I think taking away corner threes, frankly, would be a disaster because you just basically would make large sections of the court completely useless, and you would just have a smash up at the rim, and that would be very bad. But I do, one thing that Adam, was saying afterward that I think I can share, because Chris Mannix asked a question about these threes, and we had a brief conversation after. One thing I thought he said that was pretty smart on this topic was, we're not going to make any changes, if we make any changes at all, that are complicated, right? Like, for example, there's been talk about,
like the All-Star
should we
weekend,
limit
that's
the number
not
of
complicated.
threes? Well, yes, but I mean, like, for example, there's it's been proposed that we should limit the number of threes in basketball a team can take in an NBA game. It can only take 40. It can only take 35 or whatever, right? And I agree. Like, I'm with him. I think if you have something where a fan is sitting there going, well, we can only take 4 more threes in the game, what are we going to do? Like, I just don't know if I don't think that's helping the problem either. To be totally candid, I think this entire issue the NBA have goes back to the summer of 2016. I think the league, the moment Kevin Durant went to the Warriors and the Warriors didn't win the title that year, I think in a lot of people's minds, it devalued the regular season. And I think everything that's happened since then, from a slow drip from a rating standpoint, goes back to that.
They did win the title.
I don't know what you do about that.
They did win the title.
No, I mean when they lost in 2016 and after winning 73 games, and then Durant went there after they won 73 games and they built the best team of all time. Like, I think the league has been struggling to get back to the place it was then ever since. And, I'm not quite sure, frankly, at this point, how it gets there.
Yeah, I think part of what makes this so complicated is it's a multi-layered problem. It's a structural problem. Like the NFL has the fact that it's an 18-game season, going to be an 18-game season. The games mean more. The NBA 82, you could argue that there's too many games, but they're stuck with it. There's the rise of analytics in the three. There's
still 82 games, Jason. This was the 83rd game tonight for Milwaukee and Oklahoma City. Right. But it didn't actually take place.
This is going to count into the memory hole, and we're not going to think about the stats or anything that happened tonight.
I have great news
for
the
sun
Thunder
rises
fans.
Tomorrow, this game will disappear.
The Thunder are on a 5-game win streak. If you look at the NBA standings right now, they're Thunder on a 5-game win streak.
Right.
This game
doesn't
not
count.
happen.
That's right.
They are rolling.
And by the way, this is an example I don't think this game should count in the standings unless it just counts for the team that wins the game for that reason. Like, it shouldn't hurt you to get to the championship game of this tournament, in my opinion.
Well, I'm okay with not counting in the standings, but the stats just literally go into a void.
Well, the stats part I think is dumb. I was talking about from a standings perspective. One thing I do think, Jason, one thing you said there, just sort of in passing, I'm curious long term about the 82-game schedule. One thing, again, like I said, one thing Silver made a point of saying during his, sort of state of the league thing earlier, is that because they're going to have access to these streaming services now, they're going to be able to do a lot of things they couldn't do before as far as broadcasting games. And one thing that has been consistently true for a very long time is the league has been beholden to honoring the RSN contracts it has with teams by having to play 70, 72 games a year for those contracts. With all these games basically being on national TV going forward, we're not quite there, but you're pretty close. It puts you in a position where I could see a world in the future where maybe the NBA looks at it and says, we can reduce the schedule by 15%, 20%, and find a way to make the money work, maybe sell another TV package or whatever, and potentially have less games, more scarcity of games, more players playing in more games because there's less back-to-backs, all that kind of stuff. I do think the fact that he was as open about them looking at things as he was, none of that is me reporting that they're talking about any of that, but I do think that there's going to be a real hard look at a lot of things, because if the numbers keep going the way they are, they're going to have to look at things at some point.
All right. You sometimes waste your time to listen to our podcast, Jason. You have some notes.
Listener.
We are here to take constructive and destructive criticism. Please do your worst.
I'm a loyal listener. First of all, I think you're too hard on Bontemps. I think everybody's too hard on Bontemps. I think we're.
I would say that most people think
much.
I'm not hard enough. I think that's.
I can take it, Jason. It's all good. I can take it, buddy. No, I appreciate your friendship and your backing on that.
That's top line. Next, what's going to happen if you say something bad about the Cavs? They're not going to let you go back to Ohio? Why? I just find that what's going to happen? What's really going to happen, Brian? Because it's getting crazy now. Now listen, they're good. Let's admit
24 and like 23
they're a great
and 4,
team.
buddy.
Yeah, they're a great team. But before that, there hasn't been a qualitative change in the coverage from one Brian Windhorst. They're not going to let you back in the state. I don't understand it. And then finally, MacMahon's height extremism. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. What's going on? What's going on with this guy? And, it's like, you can tell it really bothers him because he brings it up every pod.
It's a little bit of overcompensating, right? Just a little bit of overcompensating for something.
When we were on with the referees the other day, MacMahon had his say, and then he's like, people think I'm actually being serious, and I was like, not just people, I think you're being serious. Like he's definitely.
That was amazing.
He's definitely.
He's like, I've softened my position. I was like, when did you soften your position? When does that happen?
Yeah.
Every podcast, you say the refs need to be 6 feet tall. Where did that come from? I was like, what is going on? It was amazing.
By the way, I don't think we talk about the Cavs as much as we probably should. If anything, I try to keep Cavs talk off because I don't want.
There's a reason why it's hashtag
good
Cavs
angle.
Corner.
This is a good.
It's
angle.
a corner. It's a small little corner. And by the way, never mind. I will take your criticism. I like Adam Silver. I will acknowledge that not everything is perfect and that we can strive to be better. Before you go, Jason.
Yeah.
Where are the Knicks headed this year? They are playing really good basketball.
This is what I want to know. I want Jason's takes on the Knicks.
They're the number one offense in the league.
Right.
But where are you with the Knicks? What's your confidence meter?
My confidence meter is like at a 6 trending up, maybe a 7. I think this was a worthy bet. The offense is incredible. Cat, I didn't see Bernard King. Cat is like the best offensive Knick I've ever seen in my life, and I think he is dynamically changed the offense. Now there are
Carmelo
obviously
Anthony.
questions.
Carmelo.
I think that listen, I love Carmelo. All respect to Carmelo. I just think when you take the efficiency and the size,
what about insanity?
I think Cat is. For 6 weeks, that was the best. Let's admit it. For a month and a half, that was incredible. But I obviously the defense is a question mark, and it remains to be seen if they can stabilize on that side enough. Now, trending upwards and a great win over Orlando. The cup loss to the Hawks was very concerning in the way that they let go of the rope, and in the way that maybe for the first time in his tenure, I felt like Tom Thibodeau got outcoached a little bit. And concerned about McHale when you give up 5 first for a guy, but you have to trust in his resume. And overall, I feel like they are where they should be. And I take heart in the fact that other teams that have attempted to make the leap, Boston a few years ago, the Warriors when they were trying to do it, went through a lot of the same problems, baffling losses, weird turnovers, letting go of the rope, losing games that they shouldn't lose because the 3 wasn't dropping. And so I think that's a lot to iron out. I will acknowledge that Tom Thibodeau has to coach this team in a way that he has not coached a team really before. But I'm overall very positive about the Knicks. I feel good about it. And I think the bet that they made was one that was worth making.
I think a year from now, when they've had a chance to get some defensive players and some more big men, they're going to have a different view, and you're going to say that some of this is worth it. But I think their roster is flawed to the point that it's probably going to cost them this year. But
I don't disagree that they're flawed. Yeah, well, that's the issue.
That's their job. Their job is to find a way to get players.
Are they gonna just like?
Well, they don't need Bill Russell in his prime. They don't need Bill Russell. They have a lot of talent.
And he would help.
He would help.
I would
some healing balm on Mitchell Robinson's legs. You know, I think that
still
part of what's really hard about this is the offensive rebound is not coming back. That's just flat out not coming back. And
I will say this:
adapt.
Before we let you go, joining us from T-Mobile Arena, coming in from the top rope, running from the back like this is the WWE, it's Ban MacMahon, who's a heightist. And oh my God, you look spectacular, MacMahon. Oh,
howdy,
he's like
partners.
A lawyer.
Hey, I just love that we have just a showcase for the small markets, and I pop on here and I hear about the Knicks problems, comparing them to the Celtics and the Warriors. Man, the small market shine. We couldn't just let it breathe for a night. Let's talk about the Knicks, baby. Let's go to
What you missed was his criticism of the pod, which he didn't criticize Bontemps. He actually said that we are too critical of Bontemps. Number one, he said that he said I'm in the tank for the Cavs. And then he said your heightism is run amok and needs to be reined in at the highest levels of the company.
By the way, Brian didn't say anything about the Cavs being in the tank being wrong. You just get right past that. As I said it.
That's the accuracy of that.
Hey, there'll be a little technical spree tonight, and I think they're all handed out by sub-6 footers. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for stopping by. We really enjoyed it. Please come back soon. Good luck with your endeavors. I hope you feel better. And when we come back here on the Hoop Collective, we're going to talk to MacMahon and hear what was said in the post-game locker rooms. When we come back on Hoop Collective. Welcome back, Band MacMahon, with Tim Bontemps in Las Vegas at T-Mobile Arena. You were with the Thunder after this game, which they had to be disappointed. They can put whatever face on it they want. This was a night for this young Thunder team to win their first piece of hardware. You can say whatever you want about the NBA Cup. You can make fun of it. You can make fun of the ribbon that they could have put in the rafters at the Paycom Center. I had to think about what it was called for a second. But this was disappointment, MacMahon.
Look, they wanted to raise the ribbon, put it right next to Nick Collison's jersey up there in the rafters. You know, there was talk about, hey, 70% of the season left and learning from this, so on and so forth. But obviously, you know, hey, they're a competitive group. They had a chance to win a championship. And, you know, as much as anything, it's not that they lost the game. This was a bad performance by the Thunder. You know, this is a team that is at a point where they want the national spotlight. They feel like they've earned the national spotlight. And this was just an absolute dud. Giannis dominated, but they held the Bucks under 100 points. This was the worst offensive performance of the season for the Thunder. The only good thing I can say about their night offensively is it doesn't count on their season averages because it would have dragged it down. Worst field goal shooting night of the season, lowest scoring night of the season, worst three-point shooting night of the season. And look, give the Bucks credit. The Bucks played well defensively, but according to our Stats Williams crew, 2 of 22 on uncontested threes. You're not going to win in today's NBA firing up bricks like that. You know, Bricktown was certainly a fitting moniker for Oklahoma City tonight.
Did you think it was nerfed?
You said it earlier. But
I mean, that's hard to say. Obviously, this is not a team that has had a lot of these spotlight type of games. Maybe, yeah, but look, I don't think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a guy who nerves are really a factor for. And he had a terrible shooting performance. I asked him specifically how much did Andre Jackson Jr.'s defense have to do with that. He was 3 of 12 when defended by Andre Jackson Jr. And he said, hey, you know, he played hard. You know, he played good defense, but it was nothing he hadn't seen before. And Shai said he still felt like he got to his spots. He just didn't make shots. So, you know, maybe nerves were a factor for some of these young guys. But I think it was just a terrible performance on the offensive end by the Thunder.
Well, and you talked about it earlier, Brian, that, you referenced Game 5 last year against Dallas, and, we talked about it with Jason. If you're somebody watching the Thunder going into the playoffs, what are the questions you have about this team? Is Jalen Williams good enough as your second main scorer? And is this team going to be able to hold up offensively and hit shots in a big spot? And in that Game 5 on their home court, they didn't hit shots. Jalen Williams struggled offensively in that series, albeit while doing a lot on the defensive end that he probably doesn't necessarily have to do going forward now that they have Alex Caruso on the team. But look, it's one game. It doesn't count in the stats. They're going to be probably the number one seed in the West. They got a great chance to make a deep playoff run. I don't think anybody should write them off of one game, but it is one game in a marquee spot against a big opponent, and it did showcase some of the flaws or concerns that people have about this team when it gets to the playoffs in a few months.
Well, and I would add that it is a team it's a small team, and especially right now when Chet, he's in the second row of the bench tonight, but he's not going to, it's weeks before he's back on the floor. It's a 7-footer surrounded by a bunch of wings and guards, basically. And Giannis just had his way with them. The Mavericks beat him up with size last year during the playoffs. They struggled against the Lakers, who obviously are one of the bigger teams in the league. And, that's going to be a challenge. And then right now, the Thunder are a mediocre three-point shooting team. They rank 19th in the league in three-point percentage. Again, fortunately for them, this doesn't count on that, or they'd probably be sliding down that list a little bit more. Getting Chet back would help both of those issues significantly. At the same time, we're not going to sit here and say, hey, if they just had Chet, because the other team didn't have, their third best player. So, but to your point, Bontemps, I do think some of the Thunder's question marks were exposed tonight for sure.
Let me ask you something, because we just don't know. Like, do we take into account the performance tonight from Shea when it comes to the MVP? Like,
yes,
he's 8 of 24.
Yeah,
well, that's late. We're spoiling our conversation for later in the week.
Well,
we'll have that conversation again later in the week. All I'm saying is, I texted Bontemps late in the third quarter, and I said, "Hey, flip-flop the top two on my BS poll answer. This doesn't count toward the regular season stats, but the NBA Cup is part of the regular season. This was if SGA would have gone out and had 48-8 and just dominated, then we'd have been talking about, hey, this proves that he's the MVP frontrunner. Giannis was absolutely dominant. Shea had an off night. I'm sorry, how could you not take that into consideration when you're thinking about, kind of the one-third way into the season MVP race?
The Thunder want attention and the spotlight, and they want Shea to have attention and the spotlight, and they did not show up in the spotlight tonight. Doesn't mean their season's over, but this was a chance to really make a statement. Unfortunately for them, they made a statement that wasn't so great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say this. Obviously, the Thunder, they're starting Isaiah Joe right now.
They started Isaiah Joe tonight. That was a change that actually surprised me. Casey Walls had been starting.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Did they say what happened with that, MacMahon, after the game?
Yeah, it's funny because they had the worst shooting night of the season. Mark D wanted to get more shooting into the starting lineup. And look, they got off to a good offensive start before things just completely went to hell. I was surprised by that. One, because they'd obviously been playing extremely well. And two, I thought Casey Walls would get the Dame assignment right off the bat, but obviously they went a different direction. And he also mentioned they weren't sure until later in the day that Middleton wouldn't be in there. So that kind of impacted what they were thinking matchup-wise. I wonder if Mark D wishes he had that one to do over again now.
Yeah, although this game was a 2-point game at half. Like, it wasn't like the starting lineup, the game got away from them in the third quarter. So, all right. Well, MacMahon, you got to see. I got to tell you, Bontemps and I were talking before the game. I thought there was a 75% chance the Thunder will win in this game. So I have to give credit to the Bucks because they just took it.
And look, the other thing is this legitimizes this run that the Bucks have been on. Like we've talked about, soft stretch of schedule, so on and so forth. Hey, the Thunder have been playing as well as anybody in the league, and the Bucks absolutely kicked their butts up and down the court tonight. This legitimizes that Milwaukee's turnaround is real.
By the way, I was needled. Because I talked about AJ Green and how the other day when we did our last pod, I was told how could you bring this up? This guy's too small of a sample size. The guy hit 3 threes tonight.
No. What was too small of a sample size was citing 7 3-point shots in clutch time.
Well, buddy, this is all clutch time. This is for
time. The Thunder did 5 all night.
This game was all clutch time because it's for the cup, baby. And to point out, he had a very good game tonight. Also, Gary Trent had a very good game.
He's a tremendous shooter.
That's all. I've been taking too much flack. Okay, controversial move by Bontemps to conduct the straw poll this week, the Bontemps poll before this game. I think that's
everybody has the ability to change their vote, which some people have already said that they have. Multiple people, not just MacMahon.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, the straw poll has been conducted. Bontemps has his votes. The results will be revealed on ESPN.com and our podcast on Friday. MacMahon and Bontemps are flying over here to LA tomorrow. We're gonna be together in our studio here in LA to talk about these results. And Bontemps, this is going to be a very interesting poll. Not only just who's in first, but the separation, who's in second, third, and fourth. I think this race is pretty open right now, so I'm excited for it.
I'm excited to see who's going to pick up the check for dinner tomorrow night.
What are all bets settled? Do I owe any bets?
Look, this is me reaching for my wallet with my gator arms.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the poll's going to be interesting. People will see how many people follow MacMahon's lead and make a change off of one game in a knee-jerk reaction to one play in one game. But yeah, it's a very interesting set of results, and a lot of people have interest in the poll. I got a lot of questions over the past week or two, like, "Hey, when's the poll coming? Does it still exist?" I said, "Yeah, don't worry, it's coming." So excited to talk about it on Friday with you fellas. It'll be fun.
Yeah, the other thing is that Bontemps has done this for so many years now that he's got a decent history with comparing things, and so obviously the results are important, but when Bontemps provides some context with the history, that's always valuable too. And by the way, he won't tell us. We don't know. He keeps it very tight. It's in the vault.
True. I don't tell anybody.
Nobody knows. It's the secret password. It's his PIN code.
This shifts in all seriousness, you think I'm kidding with that, but we have seen this has actually moved the lines in Vegas. So I do take that pretty seriously, and I don't actually.
I'm not laughing. MacMahon it will move the lines.
I think it's wild. I think it's wild that it moves the lines at Vegas, but it does.
Jackson, let's get the ESPN bet lines. Let's have them know exactly where they are, and then we will check again on Friday. We won't necessarily know when we record the pod because that's part of making it public. MacMahon and I will know a little bit ahead of time, but don't worry, we're not allowed to make bets, nor will we tell anybody. We'll respect the Bontemps process. But you've routinely moved the lines in Vegas, so let's see the power of the Bontemps poll in all of its glory as it comes out right before we go to the holidays. It's going to be great, MacMahon.
Yeah, listen, BS could be Bontemps straw. It could be Big Secret. It could be Bet Shifter. It could be, let's just keep it moving.
All right, MacMahon, if you promise to drink Diet Coke tomorrow night, I'll take care of your chicken McNuggets. So,
how about I'll take care of the beer tab? You can take care of the rest.
All right. Thank you for watching and listening to the Hoop Collective. Thank you to Jackson and Rafa. our special producer who's helping us out here in LA, Josh. And we will be talking to you on Friday where we will have the Bontemps poll.
Adios, amigos.